We just have a last minute technical issue that we're getting solved. All right, you are full screen again, Joe.
Not my fault.
Awesome. Okay. If you're settled in.
I am.
All right. And then we'll have you go on silent mode, Eric on silent mode, and we'll kick off the show. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Live with me, Caleb. Every week bringing you a new guest artist. Sometimes a poet, sometimes a singer, sometimes a songwriter, sometimes a photographer. The chat room is live right over here, so feel free to chat with us and our guests throughout the show. And as usual, we'll have after party where we can get more casual and you can ask more questions of the artist after you get to know them. So this is, believe it or not, our, let's see, 30, 20, let's see, I think it's the 14th episode since I said yes to a dare by a friend of mine to start a show during our lockdown and to run that show for 1 year. So you will find me here every Sunday, 5 to 6 for the coming year. And today, our guest, well, let me say a little bit about the previous song. That was a single of mine after my first album came out, and we're going to find out more about how that single came about during today's session. My guest today is Eric Jorgenson, singer, songwriter, and musician. I met Eric back when I moved into an apartment complex that conveniently had a wine bar built in, and Eric was one of the performers who would sing at the wine bar and play guitar. And I got to know Eric a bit, and we started hanging out, playing dice. Well, I got to find out from Eric what the name of that dice game was. Anyway, sometimes playing hooky for my corporate job to have wine and play dice in the afternoons. And this led eventually to Eric collaborating with me by playing guitar on my album, Brilliant Dreams. After the album had been out for a while, I figured there should be a follow-up single, and he had a song called Under You on one of his albums, and I loved the song, started singing it at karaoke, and I asked him, could I do a single version? So that is, in fact, his band and doing backup on that single with me on top. Now, Eric has been involved in music long before this. Back, I think, in the 80s, it looks very 80s, he had a band called Ballistic Missiles, and you can see his nice 80s look here, and that haircut looking like David Sylvian of Japan or something like that. Then, some years later, he joined a cover band called Rock School, and they toured all over the San Francisco North Bay, your Sonoma County, Marin County, Napa County, and I'm sure further north and wider than that. After some years with Rock School and living the rock and roll life, Eric decided he was going to kind of settle down and go solo. So after some years of that, he relaunched Ballistic Missiles and started playing the wine bar with his buddy. And that's how I originally met him. But nowadays, he's settled down and become an acoustic man, writing his songs for acoustic guitar and recording them on acoustic guitar, leading a more bucolic life out on the Russian River. And he's going to perform some new songs for us today live, as well as we'll be hearing one of his latest singles, The River. So without further ado, I want to bring Eric on, and as always, my guest and sidekick, Joe Price.
How'd you do?
Hey, Joe, welcome to the show. Good to have you here. Our guest, as you heard, is Eric Jorgenson. Hey, Eric, you out there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So how this works is Zoom is going to flip whoever's talking. So if Joe stops talking, Eric, you got to start talking. So just listen for any silences. Okay, no pressure, man. So you asked earlier what beer I have. This is a coconut porter.
Oh,
Very,
yeah.
very nice. I took the can downstairs, so I don't know what the brand is, but
Yeah.
it's good. It's tasty. And what do you got up there?
I'm just drinking a Modelo. It's kind of
Classic.
the Mexican Budweiser.
Is it the regular Modelo or the Especial?
It's Especial. Yeah.
Okay. Versus the Negro Modelo, which
Yeah.
is the darker brew.
It's about 157 degrees up here right now, so anything light is better.
Yeah, thank you very much for doing the show. Folks, when I first proposed to Eric that we do the show, he's like, yeah, no problem. And then it turned 100 degrees out at Russian River. So he's literally going to start the show looking as he does right now, but by the end, he will be a big pile of sweaty mush. Looking forward to seeing that.
I hope so,
Yeah.
because that would be entertaining. Do you have that airplane picture?
I don't.
Andy?
I should have thrown it into the show right at the end. Insert. Unfortunately, broadcasting, what I've learned, is all this stuff that's copyrighted. Wow, it's really detectable now. Both the video and audio within seconds. All the streaming platforms know that you've shown something. So I have stripped everything commercial out as much as possible. YouTube will let my own songs through my distributor. Facebook will silence them on replay, so no one will hear that introduction piece. So none of the tracks you're going to play today, including the recordings, have been officially released. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Then we're going to be able to do a replay on Facebook with no problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually Matt, who you know, Matt Kine. He's put drum tracks down for these newer songs, but they just haven't been, mixed and mastered and all that stuff yet. So
cool. If you need a mastering engineer, I found a guy here in Seattle that's really good.
Oh,
yeah, he is about $50 a song, and he's been doing it for decades. And I threw it over to him, and I, like 5 minutes, went through his sound chain. We're getting technical here about audio mastering, folks. Think of mastering as buffing and polishing, or waxing the car. If you wash the car, or you're piecing the car together, that's like songwriting. Then maybe tuning it up is the mixing process, and then washing and buffing, and that's mastering the audio.
Yeah. So having said that, when the songs are all put together, it's one thing, and if you have to play them acoustic, it's a whole different deal because everything's missing except for the main stuff.
That is trippy. That is trippy because you're now recording these songs that I heard you playing in the piano bar, hanging out by the river, on acoustic guitar. How is that to translate that into the space with all the drums and bass and all the backing tracks?
Well, it's they're all when you write them, they're intended to be a full, band kind of thing. And if you can't play it on an acoustic guitar, it's really not a song. That's my theory anyway. So they all start with acoustic and get transposed into exactly. Transported into another planet. Yes. Sometimes it ruins it because, the acoustic version is great, but you tend to over add. So
yeah, I can see that'd be a problem. If you're in the studio and saying, hey, let's add this, let's add some trumpets, it'll make it better. And if it was a great song on acoustic guitar in the beginning.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever added trumpet, but I might add that to
getting ideas today. So let's listen to The River. Last time I heard this, last time I was in Russian River and I heard this song, I thought, wow, that's a fantastic song. It was on acoustic guitar. This one has additional parts, drums, and has been mixed. So let's see how the song holds up.
It really is still basically an acoustic guitar song, except, it's not just me being a folk singer doing it.
Got it. Okay, folks, this is a world premiere of a song that I last heard a year and a half ago, and it's a
universal premiere.
A universal premiere, and it is called The River. Here we go.
Tastes like beer, but it feels like wine.
That was The River by Eric Jorgensen, world premiere here. And those photographs are from the house where that song was written. Eric, you wrote that song before the flood. Yeah? Uh-oh, I don't hear you anymore. Did you mute yourself? I think he muted himself. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me, Eric? No, I don't hear you.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, there we are. Welcome back.
Is that
Thank you
better?
for that. Yep, that's better.
It's
So I was
amazing.
just talking about the river. I thought it was a year and a half ago. It's been longer than that. And
No, it was like the
Yeah?
first year we moved in. I had this little studio out in the backyard. Let me try that again. There we go.
there you go.
The first year we moved in, I had this little studio out in the backyard, and the river came up into our yard about 6 times that first year. And I was like, what the living, what is going on? And I'd see redwood trees go by in the river that look like submarines flying by, and propane tanks, and anyway, so there was a lot of information to write with. That little part of the song that says float down the river in a Pontiac is not an exaggeration. So I didn't do it, but there's been cars that have...
Wait a minute. I thought you were being ironic when you had that, and then you held it. I'm like, he's saying Pontiac, and then you held it so long. I was like, I'm not sure if he's saying Pontiac. No, he's saying Pontiac. So you're saying a Pontiac actually? You've heard that cars have gone down the river.
Yes, there's actually probably a myth about a Volkswagen Beetle that's buried in the beach in front of our house. It came down the creek, and yeah, it's been entombed. So yeah, there's when you see like a couch in a tree, and it's just, there's a lot of creative information sitting there right in front of you. So
And but it was before the big flood that you wrote the song.
yeah.
So
That one was nothing to write about.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the first time we really have had a chance to spend time with each other since then. And for folks that don't know, Russian River is a large river in Northern California. It's I think it's maybe the only large river in Northern California outside of the Sacramento River. And every so many years, it floods. A huge torrent of water comes down.
Kara's father is asking if the song "The River" is about a river.
Well,
I think he's being ironic
ironic. Okay, well,
because
and it's you observe this stuff. So you live just higher up the hills, elevation-wise, from Guerneville. And Guerneville is pretty low, so when things flood, Guerneville is very famous for these big floods that have entirely sunk the city. You're up on the hills. That backyard view that we saw during the song, that's at least 20, 30 feet down there to the backyard from the porch. And then you go out to the blackberry bushes, and you got, what, another 60 feet?
I think we're at like the elevation is around 56 or 57 feet, but in river terms, we're at about 46 feet.
From when it's a beach?
No, the river level. our river level. That's how you compare things around here, because that's all you care about. So if the river's at 47 and you're at 46, you're out. Um, but
And this is the first time I've seen the place, because for folks listening to this, the river might have been written beforehand, looking at floods that came into the backyard up the hill from the beach that I've been on, up that hill, then into the backyard and filled it like a bowl. I think that's where you went out. What do you call that, on the surfboard paddleboarding?
oh, I went stand-up paddleboarding in my backyard. Like steelhead jumping and crap everywhere. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
A picnic table chained to a tree.
It seemed like the right thing to do.
Until you thought about all the septic tanks.
No, until I turned the corner and there was a cable, a live cable. I don't know if it looked like power to me, sitting in the water. And I went, I know water is a good transfer of electricity, but how far? Does this go all the way to Japan? I mean, what's the deal? So I turned around and got out of there.
I think that was a very wise move for many reasons. Until you get taken off the board by deer horns or something.
Yeah, I used to paddle in the bay a lot, and I never saw an electrical wire sitting in the water, so that was fun.
And then fast forward to the next year, and the water came up not only through the backyard, not up to the house, and up to your second story.
No, it came in the first floor about 3 feet.
Oh, I could swear I saw a photograph that was like...
No, second story was fine.
Okay, that's great.
And then, so we had to gut the entire downstairs, everything, which was kind of great because it's kind of crappy. And the funny thing was, like a week before that, we were just saying, we really got to minimize. We have too much crap in this place. And it just went out the back door. There was a kitchen cabinet that floated. It was stuck in the door. The fridge was over. Our couch was on the river across the river on the hill. My studio that I recorded that song in just disappeared. Nobody knows where it is.
Somewhere in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah. So.
Wow. And Alex, I'm just remembering now, Alex and I had Chinese food with you, and you traveled, and it's like that next week, boom. The house was flooded. And and I know you just finished converting the barn into a chiropractic studio for Kara to work out, and all that stuff. I just can't imagine.
It was, that was all last year. We were out of the house for like 5 months. Then when we could finally move back in, there was a giant 145-foot redwood tree that was falling right towards our house. So we couldn't move in until that thing was cut down. And that took, I don't know, forever. So we kind of lived out in the chiropractic studio for 2 months. And then finally got back into the house, got settled. And then about 2 months later, the plague hit. So we had to, right when we got in, the first weekend we got to move back in, there was fires, and we had to evacuate for a week. So we've had fires and floods and plagues, and I'm just waiting for the locusts, and we'll be all solid.
Well, hopefully this plague was big enough. You don't have to have the locusts, and we can bypass all that.
You just roll on.
So I hear you got some live songs for us that you've been working on. And if I know you well, you've gone through all of that, folks. So and let me just take a moment to say this to folks. Folks, if you think you got problems, you got the blues, just think of what Eric and Kara went through in this last year. I submitted for my $1,000 independent contractor what do you call it, grant from the government just last night, only to wake up this morning to find out the program had been shut down. And I thought, oh man, that's a little bit of a bummer.
Well, Amazon needs that money.
Yeah, and then I I didn't jump on all that stuff at first because I'm doing okay. So, all the people out there that are really struggling, I want them to get the money. And then I woke up and not only found out I'm not getting my grant, but hey, these major corporations and large organizations sucked up all the money. Brilliant. I think we got something to work on there. But anyhow, having said that, what you got for us today?
I got a couple songs. One is kind of my song about this pandemic. Everybody's got to have one, right? But it was just something that I actually, for the once in my life, I dreamt a song, which you always forget. You kind of wake up and you go, okay, I'm going to remember that. And you go to sleep and you have no idea what it was. I actually remembered it. So that one just came to me. And then another, that's called Germ Warfare. And then the other one is called Pendejo Añejo. It's about my love-hate relationship with tequila. So,
which one are you going to have for us here first?
Well, I guess I'll do Germ Warfare.
All right. We're going to keep it nice and light.
You hear this? Let's see if I can remember how to play it. I really think that I've been in too long. Suddenly, these walls don't seem so strong. Amongst it all, the most I miss is you. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. The heart wants for a touch vaccine. I guess I'll have to play it out. Until then, I have no doubt that it's germ warfare. Nobody wins the game. Yes, it's germ warfare. We'll never be the same. I really think that I've been in too much. 'Cause every time I think I'm fucking up, something tells me that I should just shut up. Shut up. And though each day is different than the next, well, does it say it has to be complex? What happened to my spring? Where'd my summer go? Do you know? Was it germ warfare between you and me? Was it germ warfare? I guess we'll just wait and see, you and me. Yeah, I've been thinking about breaking out of my home. Tear the mask off my face and explore the unknown. Could be we are contagious, baby, you and me. Maybe we'll gonna start our own conspiracy. You and me. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But the heart begs for a touch vaccine. Thank you. Yeah. So that's that one.
Awesome. Definitely topic for the times. Question that your volume seemed to drop there about halfway through, so
It
don't
did?
know if you need to make an adjustment.
I don't know.
It's tricky. I had put a section about COVID-19 in the previous episode with Stefan Aronson because he got stuck in New York for several months sleeping on his friend's couch because he was traveling around to South by Southwest, and that got canceled, and promoting a music organization I'm a part of called Balanced Breakfast. And I had this photo of him with a mask on an empty plane, and so we talked a bit about it last week and how everybody was doing, and I added a bit in this episode. I thought, well, maybe I should talk about how everybody's doing each episode. Then I thought, maybe that's what everybody doesn't want to hear about. So I took this you just can't escape it.
Well, I don't, it's partly about that. It's partly about just, the entire reality of the division of people around this thing with, conspiracies and anti-mask and, blah, blah, blah. And it just,
Yeah. It's fascinating because, not wanting to get into it on the show, but, people talk about these are divisive times and that's why it's happening. But you look back at the 1918 pandemic and the exact same thing. People had the anti-mask league and blah, blah, blah. So I think a lot of this, when you know history, you find out this is just how people behave for thousands of years.
Yeah. And that's, you have to always remember to have compassion for people because nobody knows what the fuck is going on. So everybody's taking their own little slant with it. And even though, even though you might think that's absolutely freaking crazy, but that's just how they're dealing with it. So
yeah,
I don't know.
And I think a lot of folks have kind of grown up thinking that that there's this mysterious cabal of scientists that know all this stuff and know what's going on. The reality is humans are all in this together, and we only know what we know when we know. We might have more tools or new kinds of tools than we had 500 years ago or even 100 years ago. But in the end, you still have to gather information. You live without knowing until you have enough information to know, and then you make the best choice you can.
Yep.
Hey, Joe, you out there?
Yes, I am.
So I think this is the quietest Joe has ever been. So
I've been taking this all in, waiting for my chance to spring.
I was kind of thinking maybe this month you should take the mystic moment. If you were going to be silent the whole episode, you can, chew on it during the episode, and then during the mystic moment, you could lay it on us.
I left my gong in the other room. But seeing what you were saying about COVID-19 and taking as much information and knowledge and as we can, and then running with it from there, making the best decisions with what we have and what we're learning. It's amazing the conspiracy theories that come out, and I am mystified. I want to know what is motivating these individuals to resist safety. What can it be? It can't be a mask. How intimidating is a mask? And but on the other hand, the lack of safety is intimidating enough that entire economies shut down. To say nothing of our venues for mediums, for musicians.
And for folks that missed the last episode, we're talking to Stefan, as I found. It's spelled Stefan, but it's Stefan. And Joe, during Joe's episode, we talked about his motorcycle gang and all their riding. And he was like, well, we've always lived with protection, with helmets and leathers and whatnot. So PPE, personal protection equipment, as I learned in the biotech world, is just, it's second nature to you. But for folks that have never had to wear PPE or go into a clean room. So I spent about 18 years in the biotech world, and I've gowned up and gowned down and stepped properly over the tape line and double layered the latex gloves and had that experience. But for people that haven't had that experience, I see why it'd be completely alien.
We worked at Bear together. I keep remembering that.
That's right. You were doing
rolling
some
out of
IT work
computer
there.
equipment. It's funny. The closest I can think of any kind of justification. At one point, I developed a claustrophobia to full face helmets, but I worked through it. Would rehearse getting in and out of helmets. The undoing of the buckles, the redoing, the undoing, and the visor flipping so I could breathe. And I just made a practice, a drill out of it, and it seemed redundant. I got over my claustrophobia by learning how to put on and take off a full face helmet efficiently and quickly. So a mask that you could rip off within a half second. I can't see, well, I could see people feeling stifled, but not, if you think it's hard to breathe with a mask, try a ventilator.
Yeah, certainly. And certainly try the stuff I did in biotech. And I only, when I was outside of the clean room. So I only, because I was a part of the company, was required to go and experience what all the workers experienced. And I was a training professional and training them on stuff. So I had to know what their life was like. But these people were going in and gowning up and gowning down multiple times a day, complete bodysuits, the booties, the double layered gloves, the sterilization, the stepping over a certain line at a certain point. It was pretty intense. And like you say, you get used to, or you can train yourself to be used to something that's foreign. But again, if it's something that you haven't experienced before, it does require change. Hey, Eric.
Yes.
This is your episode, so I realized Joe and I could probably talk about COVID-19. Oh, wait, there's a mysterious guest. Who's that?
I did have a question for Stefan.
Oh, no, Stefan was last week. This is Eric.
I mean, Eric, I beg your pardon, Eric. I beg your
you
pardon.
have a serious delay going on there.
Yeah, about 7 days. I'm trying to get better bandwidth. Question. I did have a question. With what's been going on of late, how have the music venues been affected in your area for singer-songwriters, as an example?
It's been pretty much everything's been shut down completely. There's a tiny bit of some live stuff going on, but it's like the performer is, back 30 feet away from everybody, and everybody's 6 feet spaced, and it's just weird. It is just weird, because it's the best thing about playing live is when people are close and everybody's, you're doing, just the whole connection. And there's not really a connection with that much space. It's kind of like back when I was 17 or something and playing the Sleeping Lady, and there was 4 people there, but that was for a different reason.
Those were the days, the Sleeping Lady Cafe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The original on Bolinas.
Yes. Yes, I don't know what Smiley's in Bolinas has been through, if they're still open or not. My understanding is that 19 Broadway and Perry's in downtown Fairfax have been shut down, have been closed.
They're both for sale, but
yes.
There's at least a GoFundMe for Perry's. They're trying to raise enough money to keep it going, because without those 2 places in Fairfax is all about music and bars and community, and bars and community is kind of an oxymoron. But anyway, there was a lot of music happening in that town every night.
Monday nights, I think Derek Smith hosted he hosted a open mic,
Yep.
and so did Perry's at the same time. So you had musicians walking back and forth with their guitar cases doing the Monday night commute from venue to venue. It was great.
Yeah, right. Like the first time I ever walked down, what is it, 6th Street in Austin or 5th? I don't know. I never remember which one it is. But there's just every single place is a live music venue, and it's musicians walking. And I go, when you come back to Fairfax, you go, yeah, this is a little tiny, microscopic Austin. It's kind of cool. And Nashville's like that too, but that's a whole different thing. So anyway, I don't know where it's going to go. How are you going to do even like the Greek Theater is just like the best venue in the Bay Area, and the Fillmore, right?
Yes.
And every time I've been, you're just in a hot, sweaty crowd. You can't do that anymore. I mean, watching people. The musicians are fine because they're up there, but and then you get down to the smaller level stuff like a Perry's or, well, that's a big leap, but anyway, everybody's close. I mean, this lead singer is fine because he's spitting all over everybody. So, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm reminded of Sausalito's No Name Bar. They're Tuesday night open mic. I don't know what the status of that bar is now.
That's a good point. That's a great spot.
Probably the same as everything else. I don't know.
Do you hear of underground stuff here in Seattle? At least in the first couple months, I think before the seriousness of the situation had settled in, there were a lot of underground concerts happening. I could see like No Name Bar. I guess they would risk their license, but
I'm sure there's a lot of that.
Little hidden speakeasies.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of that. And there's places like, Terrapin and Santa Fe, they have that big outdoor area, and they've had a few things there.
Oh,
the
wow.
Paper Mill in Woodacre is out semi-outdoor sometimes in their afternoon events.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's I can see the outdoor stuff. The indoor stuff's going to be tough. It's not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, I just on Balanced Breakfast, this music business group that I was talking to, a lot of stuff definitely has been officially canceled through October. Other stuff has been canceled through May of next year. So yeah, I think Bottle Rocket, that's the one in Napa, right?
Yeah.
And they were talking about maybe doing something in October, but I said to a friend who, in the first week when they started hitting the news, they said, "Oh, it looks like we might have to lock down. How long do you think we'll be locked down? Like a week?" I said, "A year." I said, I worked for a vaccine company. I know the time it takes to develop and get it tested and make sure it's safe and get it out to people. And we've been talking about this pandemic internally at that company for 7 years that I was there. And every time it looked like a pandemic, the package would arrive with the gloves and masks, and I was trained on how to do that and how to drive properly to work that reduced my exposure. And so I'd been in that environment a lot. And given the scale of this, I was like, yeah, you're prepare to hunker down for some time. And the music, the whole music and arts and film is really tough. So having said that, we do have technology, unlike the Black Plague, unlike even 1918 flu. We have technology to at least reach out and see each other. We don't have to just look on the television. We can actually be our own television, which is what the show is all about. And we can perform for each other and still connect. So with that, without further ado, I think we're ripe for a song. What do you think, Eric?
Sure. I guess sure. I'll do Pendejo and Yeho. So my mother moved to, she bought a house down in Mexico in San Pancho, which is maybe 45 minutes north of Puerto Vallarta. Puerto Vallarta. Did you like that?
Very nice.
So we were down there at Christmas time, and I got a couple song titles in my head, and this one was easy because there's so much great. What in the world? I'm
my
not going to even
goodness.
explain.
There's a world behind the sheet.
I don't even know who that is. I'm telling you, the heat. Anyway, so there's so many great tequilas down there. You just start, oh, this is so great. Let's have another one. Wake up the next morning, shit, fuck, piss. And then you do it again. So this is called Pendejo Añejo. Anyway, I'll try to play it. Yeah. Why do you treat me so bad, so bad, so bad? Pendejo, and you're the best I ever had. Oh. 4 o'clock, I start to think about 5 o'clock. 6 o'clock, I can't remember my name. When down, still as bright as the lights in town. And in the morning, I always say the same thing. Pendejo, and no more, no more, no more, no more. Pendejo, and why do you treat me so wrong, so wrong, so right? Pendejo, and where have you been all my life, my life, my life? At 4 o'clock, I start to think about 5 o'clock. 6 o'clock, I can't remember my name. But I lay me down, still as bright as the lights in town. In the morning, I always say the same thing. Pendejo, and no more, 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 no more. Oh, hey. Thank you very much.
your song for your proud sponsor.
Yeah, sponsored by no one yet, but maybe there'll be a really cheap tequila company that'll.
Yeah, George Thorogood would be proud.
Who's that?
George Thorogood.
Oh, yeah, it's kind of a it's kind of got that yeah, turned into something. Anyway, yeah, sure.
Speaking of influences, I don't know if you got to see the comment that I posted with the Ballistic Missiles album of the guy talking about all your influences from Tom Petty, Cheap Trick, the Beatles, and whatnot.
I'd prefer to go a lot earlier than that, but that's cool.
So, who do you see as your big influencers on your songwriting?
I don't know. I mean, I listened to all the same people that most guitar players did of my age, which was, Hendrix and Santana and Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton and all that, really wonderful British blues kind of stuff, which was basically American blues. And then you go and go back and start, studying American blues, which goes way back. And then as far as like, that's just guitar playing, but songwriting, I don't know. Who's my influences? Anybody who writes good songs. Start, hey, the Beatles, they did all right. They knew how to write a song or two. Tom Petty's a jukebox. Those people wrote just so many great songs. Be nice to write one of those, but I'm just influenced by anything that's good. How's that?
Sounds fantastic.
Nobody in particular.
And I hear you about the songwriting. I usually write about 4 songs a year on average when I look back. And I've tried to push myself further to make more content. And I get a lot of, scratch demos and whatnot. But in the end, about 4 songs a year is what gets released. It's a real time-consuming process. And to really perfect something. And you change one little word, like in The River, when you said the bottles, I immediately heard in my head, and cans. But you changed it to bottles and something else going down the river?
They leave their bottles and they leave their dreams.
They leave their bottles and they leave their dreams. I just heard they leave their bottles and they leave their cans. It's
a recycling song.
And and when you have the choices, like you got to, should it be dreams? Is that clever or is that cliche? And you're constantly thinking about every little bit. And then once you get the song done, now you got to produce it, which takes time and energy and and asking friends over. I think I lured you to my apartment. Sounds kind of sketchy. I lured you to my apartment with a 6-pack of beer to
I recorded you after that night, so.
Yeah, that's why the album has done so well, because it got free press.
Yeah.
to play on that album, and you go through all that process. You finally submit it to mastering. They polish it up and they ship it, and it's 3 minutes.
It's
boom, 3 minutes. Someone likes it, doesn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, writing is a really fun thing. If you take something that wasn't there a second ago and you create something, it could just start with a word or a chord or a line or a theme, whatever you want to do. And then it actually turns into something. I mean, it's the coolest thing in the world, but it is a lot of work. And that, the bottles and the dreams thing with your cliche comment, the bottles is actually literal, because these mother suckers come to the river and leave their bottles. And as far as I'm concerned, they left their dreams too. So that's not literal. That's just, it worked with the melody. So made it a little more romantic.
Cool. Well, we are at the top of the hour, so we're going to have the mystic moment. And as usual, Eric, if you can hang out longer, we have an after party where, speaking of the Beatles, you have a song called For You that I thought was very Beatles-like in the production and the songwriting. But first, mystic moment. Here we go. So this week's Mystics Moment is the same as last week. Who can you collaborate with? As you heard in today's episode, I've collaborated with Eric, adding life and extra guitar parts to several of my songs on my first album. I got his permission to re-record vocals on the single Under You and release that. Those things would never have happened if we hadn't hung out, talked about music, connected, and then collaborated. If you've wanted to be creative, do something creative in your life, and you haven't given yourself that permission, it may be that you need a collaborator to work with. And as we were just discussing, songwriting can be a laborious and time-consuming process. And that's sometimes a lot easier to do with another person around. So I'd love you to think about in the coming week something that you would like to do that you're feeling blocked on. Find someone on Facebook. Find some online community. There are a lot of opportunities right now as we're sheltering in place to reach out to the world, connect, and be creative. I know for myself, I think every moment I've been creative has been worth it. Yes, could I have had more material things? Could I have had more financial security? But what would be the point if I was never creative and never took that chance? So that's your mystic moment for this week. So, as folks who are regulars of the show know, at 6 o'clock we move into after party. Feel free to add comments.
I'm starting.
In the comments in the comments field up over here, and chat with your fellow Facebookers. Do some collaboration. If you're on YouTube or Twitch, welcome. And we're going into after party.
You got that lighting thing going on already, so disco ball and lasers. You need some smoke.
Well, unfortunately, the smoke is bad for the recording studio equipment and my poor lungs, so I had to say no to the smoke. I did bring these laser light shows out to a show, and that was the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, there's not enough people smoking in here. They don't look as cool. So,
What? No sparkle?
Yeah. I remember growing up in San Jose, going out to this club called FX and coming home on a Sunday night and stripping all my clothes off because there was probably like an inch of nicotine covering me. I reeked and smelled, but man, it made the laser light show really cool.
Back in the day, playing clubs in the 80s, there was smoking allowed, and I had a original Les Paul case that had like this purple velvet inside, and I bring the thing home and it just stunk like smoke every single night. And when they killed smoking in bars, I was like, well, that's kind of dumb. Who goes to a bar to be healthy? Anyway, to tie those two things together, my guitar cases didn't smell like smoke anymore, so.
Which is a bonus. And my outfits no longer smelled like smoke, and my lungs, I no longer had lung problems every week. And I think in the net sum of it was a good thing, but it did look cool. And the artificial one isn't quite the same.
I didn't smoke, but I enjoyed the people smoking because it just made it so much, the lighting better. It made the lighting better and the atmosphere better somehow.
Yeah. So folks that don't know all the references Joe and Eric were referring to, most of those locations are in Marin County, maybe some in Sonoma, in north of San Francisco. And there's a lot of small towns. Marin's interesting. You look at a map from a satellite view, and the whole Bay Area is like one big machine, terraformed machine with this ring of hills on either side. And then Marin just looks like a forest. And they've kept growth down there so that you get all these small little towns up there. That
a very white forest, a very 96% white forest.
Yes, it's. I find it very ironic that the tunnel that you go through after you leave San Francisco and you land in Marin, over the Golden Gate Bridge, then you go up this mountain, and you hit this tunnel that has a rainbow on it. And after he died, the tunnel was renamed the Robin Williams Memorial Tunnel, which is ironic because one of the jokes I remember from Robin Williams is he used to refer to that tunnel and the rainbow as a race detector. So, yeah, years later, he got that joke, he got that tunnel named after him, being very progressive minded. So, yeah, it's a very niche world and community out there. But lots of music venues, certainly lots of country, rock, folk. It's like being as if you were in a different country. I mean, it doesn't seem like you're still in the Bay Area for a number of reasons. But one of the good reasons is all the venues. And I know a bunch of them have closed down, and that's really going to change that landscape. I was just thinking about how when I lived up there for 5 years, and hey, Kara, guest appearance. We're in the after party. She can dance.
Yes, she's going to sing a song now.
It's the after party, Kara. Does she know it's the after party?
I don't think she cares.
What?
It's after party, after party. It's the part of the show we call after. It's the part of the show we call after party.
Oh, yeah, I was watching it downstairs.
Yeah, where we stop being formal. In the
In the air
beginning,
conditioning.
we're all proper, and now we're gonna, unbutton the shirt, hang out. For those that don't know, Kara is an amazing chiropractic doctor, and look at that. I can still do it. I had a frozen shoulder a few years ago and went to rounds of physical therapy and all these people working on me. And, it'd go up and a little down, up and a little. Kara took one look at me, I think maybe 4 to 6 sessions, and whoop, I had my whole arm back. The reason why I'm mentioning this is 2 months ago, I developed a very painful condition in my left arm. That affects me all the way down to the wrist and whatnot. And all I got from my regular doctor was, don't come to the hospital because it's not worth your life.
Oh, you can't see it.
And then he said, just put ice on it and take Motrin.
That's it.
And I'm like, okay, I've been here before, but this is something new. So I'm missing you, Kara.
Yeah, thank you. I miss you. I miss you too. I'm sorry we couldn't meet up.
Oh, no problem. It's crazy times and lots going on, and I just, appreciate you guys reaching out and connecting. And
We miss seeing you all the time at the wine bar. I loved hearing about that when you started. Out of the cord. That's how we became friends, and I call you Dr. K. I have no idea what else to call you
because you worked at BioMarin.
Yeah. So I assumed you had this PhD, so I immediately called you Dr. K because I didn't know if you were KALIB or Kevin.
Doctor of drinking, doctor of talking.
And so you're just my Dr. K.
Oh, thank you. Well, you're my Dr. Kara.
Oh, and I'm a Dr. K.
You are.
Yeah, right.
You are.
Yeah.
You are. You were just projecting on me your own greatness.
Oh, maybe.
And
I really like the KALIB, all capitals, because it helps me separate KALIB.
KALIB, whatever.
KALIB. I know I've never got it right.
It's funny. I'm always surprised at who will say KALIB, and I know people struggle with it. And so sometimes I'll just make sure I do the introduction when I'm doing like a music festival or whatnot. And spelling it in all caps seems to help. The Duart, doing the capital A, seems to help on the name. I will note that I do call my wife Dr. Hoops because she does have a PhD. And I'm a Doctor Who fan, so it's a nice little in-joke. I'll be like, Dr. Hoops. Anyhow.
I blame my mispronunciation of KALIB on my Ohio accent.
Oh,
I don't even know I'm doing it.
I see. Yeah, last week. Last week. Last week.
I used to practice that. I used to practice it wrong. I mispronounce KALIB all the time. KALIB. I just practiced my calligraphy and I got it right.
Nice. And last week our guest was Stefan, but he spells it Stefan. I'm like, how do you get an I out of an A at the end of the name? But names are weird. So, Eric.
Yes.
What I'm going to play another song of yours. Could you tell our audience about it?
I can't even hear when you played The River, I couldn't even hear it. So I don't know what you're playing next. Is it For You?
Yep.
Okay. Right, because that's what I sent you. What is that song? I don't know what the I know what that was. That was kind of like a creative writing exercise that I've used a lot of times, where you just kind of write and actually, I learned later that Bowie did this. Bowie would write lines and throw them in the room, write another line and throw it in the room, and he had this big pile of random lines, and he'd pick them apart and sort of throw it together, and then he goes, oh, okay, well, that's what this means,
Yeah.
And I learned that technique I don't know, about 10 years ago. Kind of like I think it was when Bob Dylan was talking about the Nashville number system. I was learning about that, and there was this thing about this just freeform thought. Just write it. Who cares what it means? Just write it. And don't stop until you can't do it anymore. And then you put it all together, and it turns into this thing. You go, oh, okay, that's what I was writing about. You don't start with a concept, you end with a concept.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to do that sometimes. So that is how that song came about. And it's called For You, and the Beatles have a song called For You, but it really was not inspired by the Beatles. It was the music was more inspired by I don't know. There's just some chords. I always like that D to A minor thing. Anyway.
It's a great
I've already
point.
ruined the song. Don't play it.
No, I've got a lot of comments over the episodes where people want to know more about, don't just want to hear the songs and see the videos, but want to hear kind of what the thought went into and what the creative process was. That's why I was talking a little bit more about production and the production process. And I asked that question because I know for myself, I have songs I've sat and written and rhymed, but I also have done that Bowie technique, and I think it comes originally before that William S. Burroughs, and before him Brian Geisen, and then Anton Brennan before that. And
yeah,
it's amazing when you do it, because if you have like a block and you're sitting trying to write a lyric and you just can't get anywhere, all of a sudden you get stuff back that you would never come up with on your own. And so I have a couple songs, Beyond the Damage, and also the current KALIB single, Rise Up. That was all improv during live jam sessions and then cut up later. And
good promotional drop right there, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. I've been told I don't promote enough, so I'm trying to ease myself into it.
Yeah, it's the worst. Promoting yourself is the worst.
It's very. I would just pump out music and not tell anybody about it all the time, and I'm getting a bit better about that. Go to KALIB, KALIB.bandcamp.com to listen to all my releases, including the official releases and the B-sides and rarities. Getting better? Well, on that note, let's go hear what the result of that process was for Eric. This is a song called For You.
I have to listen to it on my phone.
From the unknown, I'll find my way back.
And we got a little extra remix there with it.
What?
Got a little extra remix with it. You're playing along.
Oh, no, I couldn't hear it. I put it on my phone and there was just like a giant bunch of latency, so I don't even know what it sounded like. But
hey, folks, go ahead and type in the chat room what that sounded like. It was, that song is a rocker, so I know looked like it was getting up there and being the signal kind of hot, so I had to pull it down a little. Always interesting because the whole Zoom thing. Have you set up the turn on original sound feature?
Huh?
Yeah. So Zoom has this feature buried in it called Turn On Original Sound.
Where do I find that?
We'll have to do it offline. It's weird.
Yeah.
You have to go into a property and then go in a subsection and then enable its potential. And then once you enable that potential, you get a link on the top left window that says Turn On Original Sound. And every time you launch the application, you have to click that button and if you click Turn Off Original Sound, then of course it goes off. Anyhow, Zoom is kind of weird like that. So a lot of times if you don't have that on, what we've been finding in these big live jams and concerts that everybody's doing is it'll start squishing all the audio and doing all sorts of weird corrections. So I will work with you after the show to get that changed.
Yeah, one thing I do want to mention about that song is Matt Kine played drums on that, and I love the drum part. It's just made the song, so
yeah,
you got to give credit to people who put their time into it. So
absolutely. And Matt not only played on that song, but he played on the Ballistic Missiles. I don't know.
He played on the River,
Okay.
on that other track, and those two songs I just played, he's playing on those, and yeah, so he's very creative, and it's kind of interesting because I just send him these audio tracks, and I have an idea for a drum part, but I never actually suggest it because I suck at drums. And he comes back with his part, and he's like, he just understands original music. So it's really cool to send your song out and just know what you're going to get back is going to be cool.
And you guys have been working together for some years.
Yeah, a couple of years.
Just a couple. I figure, let's see, I started by
Fourth grade. How you doing? So it's been like 10, 15 years.
Wow, I didn't realize you guys met in fourth grade.
Yeah, I think second grade actually. So we stalled a little bit before we started our music careers. Thank you.
You're like, I'm gonna kind of air guitar here, and he took a tin can, and you're like, yeah, this bodes well for the future. Yeah, you guys, when you play, you had that mind meld. You just don't have to explain anything. You can just kick into it.
Well, that, and we know each other so well, we can't really tell each other what to do. So,
Do you have moments where the other one's effed up on the song, and you just kind of have that little look in your eye, like, mm-hmm?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that happens, but it's more about just, trusting the process. I fuck up all the time, with stuff. So I'm not going to give anybody crap about that.
Those are qualities.
Yeah. I mean, mistakes are like wonderful when they work.
And
so
this is something I think about in my life, and I know a lot of people think about in their life, and it stops them from doing things. So when I talk about the mystic moment and unblocking people, one of the things I do with bands I consult for or different artists I consult for is just to get them past those internal dialogues about failure. I don't want to fail. I don't want to this. I don't want to stand out. It's like, one, if you're doing any arts, you want to stand out. You don't want to blend into the crowd if you're in the arts. That's not the goal. If you're the bass player, okay, you want to blend in with the drummer, okay, but you still want to stand out in some way. And,
is that a bass player joke?
That was a bass player joke. But And if you're an artist, you just have to create, and you're going to make mistakes, and things are going to fall apart. And if you never take a chance in life, you live in a little cocoon all the time, then you're really limiting yourself. And I think the role, one of the things about being an artist is that you, I don't know if you lose the fear of failure, but you certainly don't see failure as much of a threat. That's my experience.
I mean, I don't know. I found a cassette tape buried in some box that said, guitar playing first year or something like that. I'm like, oh, this is going to be cool. I got to put it on. And, 3 weeks later, when I found an actual cassette player, I listened to it and I go, wow, I was really the shits. There is nothing on that is even remotely good. So, you got to get past that, because it's not a perfect art by any means.
I know growing up, my dad was sensitive to if I was playing on the piano. You have to play badly for some time before you're going to play good. And he's a fan of music, so he couldn't handle me playing badly. So I always had this internal dialogue of like, oh, I don't want to disturb the neighbor kind of thing. And I think I've gotten past it, because my wife said, you're taking that guitar out on the balcony? And I said, yeah, I'm going to go practice out there. She goes, what about the neighbors? And I'm like, I don't care about the neighbors. They're going to have to suffer. Sorry. There's a certain point where that sort of internal censorship, you have to kill. You got to find some way to kill it, whether it's, like you said, tearing up strips of paper with little bits of lyrics. You got to break through those walls.
That's even an asset nowadays, because in past neighborhoods that I've lived in, including the very last one, there's always somebody playing out the window with a trumpet or a clarinet, and it always wafted on the breeze. And in this day and age, that is exactly what we need as part of the urban or rural din that we live in. Somebody next door, maybe in the next block, wafting that music out. Could be a violin, could be a bassoon, it could be a guitar, but that's what we need to hear. That's the real airwaves. And these days, from window to window, balcony to balcony, that's where it's at.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys got into that 8 o'clock howl at all. I was a little late to it, but on the river, we have this people living on the other side of the river, people living on this side of the river, and we finally went out there and started to howl, and it's just howling everywhere, because people are just, hey, whatever it means to them, And I always thought I should just put my amp outside and just crank it as loud as I can and just play. I don't know. What do you?
I think it's a great idea. Do a concert. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? Someone will say, wrap it up. And it's like any stage show, right?
It wasn't that. It was more about laziness. It was too much effort to actually bring my amp down there and plug it in. And I mean, that's always it with me. It's just laziness. Everything's set up here, and I can just go play it whenever I want, put it down, and then go back, So, but I still want to do that. Now that people don't howl anymore, now at 8 o'clock, I'll go out and just do it and get yelled at. So
do it and videotape it and send it into the show, and we can share it with folks. See, that was show promotion. See, I'm getting better.
If I did
Look forward to that new show. Episode. What was that?
I think if I did something similar with an amplifier, it would sound like an air raid siren.
That might not be bad. I think right now an air raid might be a relief compared to the other shit that's going on. So
now, Joe
too dark. Did I go too dark?
Well, Joe, I think if he was at his last location, which was down in the flatlands of Berkeley, that would go over fine. But he's now got the opportunity to move up into the hills, and I don't think they'd take kindly up there.
No.
Now, having talked about music and talked about how you perform, play some songs of different styles, I want to take a little left turn here and talk about your sense of humor. You do have a wicked sense of humor, and you put the irony in the songs. And the review I showed earlier about the Ballistic Missiles album that you did with Matt and the song Under You, there was a note there about your wicked sense of humor and turn of fate. So I dredged this off the bowels of the internet and found this embarrassing material that I like to share with my guests. Here it goes.
What is this?
So I just had some of Gino's coffee, and I think I got the shits. It's like, I don't know what he does, but I think he pisses in that fucking pot or something.
I took that coffee,
Oh,
man.
it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, that's my favorite. It's actually made from rat droppings.
Really?
Yeah, it's a real new experimental coffee. Actually, it's been around for a while, but people really love it.
I tasted something. I don't know if it was rat, but
Yeah.
it was interesting. I thought
How do you feel?
I've shit my pants a couple times,
Okay.
but I thought it was just the caffeine.
No. Yeah. Well, yeah. No, that's okay. It's cleansing. It's cleansing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was that was something I found on Eric's channel, some shorts. Again, if you feel like you're going stir crazy at home, that was a great example where just turn on the camera, do something funny, share it with your friends. The tools and platforms from YouTube to Facebook, tons of platforms out there for you to express yourself and have a good time and blow off some steam. So, Eric, what was that routine about? I saw several of these videos. How'd that come about?
What was it, about 10 years ago? 15 years ago? I don't know what it was. But anyway, we were, that was Gino. He was a Broadway, New York actor. And I was in this, he had this corporate comedy troupe. We'd go, a lot of places in the world and do this. It was kind of like for breakout sessions for corporations, keynote speaker kind of style. It was sales meetings, right? And they needed entertainment. And he has this company that was they would do skits tailored around the corporation. Anyway, so we were hanging out a lot, and we just decided to do this thing where just turn the camera on the computer and just improv right now. No thought going into it, no theme, just go. Just see what we're doing. So like that one was like, I'll start and you come in. And we did about 7 of them, and a lot of them were horrible, and a couple were kind of so ridiculous they were funny. And but it's hard to do because you're really, putting your neck out.
Yeah,
So.
I was watching and I thought, I think they're doing this improv. It's not scripted, and they're just riffing off each other. And, a certain phrase was like, wham, that nailed, and a certain phrase might be weaker. And I go, they're doing this, they're taking a risk.
The thing was, he was great. He's great at it. I'm not so good because I can't stop laughing when I'm doing it. I can't keep a straight face. So never could.
But you do and put it out there. And I know I was editing some Audio Terrace video, the last performance we did in Seattle. And I'm middle-aged, so I got my midriff, right? So I got this leather vest thing that I was going to zip up to hide the middle bit. And I got so busy before the show, making sure the video was going on, I forgot to do it. So my entire hour performance has this pot belly sticking out. And it's like, oh man, that just ruins the entire video for me. But then I stop and go, dude, you did a gig. It's documented. The performance is good, and you start going down the list. Okay, I don't want, so you can hyper focus on those things, but then you don't do anything if you get paralyzed with it. It's one reason why I liked the original Monty Python TV show when I was a kid growing up, because it was so random and ad lib.
Yeah, I mean, the whole self-conscious thing is just, you got to lose that, because worrying about what other people think is you'll never even start. And by the way, anybody who would criticize that is actually, you know, what are you doing? Show me what you did. Nothing. I'm sitting on my, I'm not going to go there. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's true. Even in the arts, but even in, I'm helping a friend run a software company, and I'll get comments from people, and I know they're well intended. They'll ask, "Hey, could you do this? Hey, could you do that? It'd be great if you did that." Or, why the heck aren't you doing this thing? And I'm like, do you realize there's no real sense of the effort that goes into these things, and like just doing it and getting it done is a huge thing. And it's good to get critique to refine what you're doing, but there is that certain pivot point where it's critique is where you say, "Hey, have you thought about doing this?" And you try it, and you just do it. Versus something that shuts down the process.
Yeah, I don't know. I did a couple of short movies and actually finished one. And it is so much work, a tremendous amount of work. And really hard. And so ever since then, when I hear somebody like, I went to this movie and I was really bad. It made me sad. It wasn't, whatever I'm like, I'm never going to critique a movie ever again, because it was just so much time and effort goes into that. And you don't know if it's going to be good. It might not, so I don't know where I'm going with that, but
get out there and do stuff. I think that's,
yeah.
put yourself out there, and
not everybody's going to like what you're doing. Very few people are going to do it, like what you're doing. But if you like what you're doing, that's what keeps you going.
And if you like the people that like what you're doing, that's the plus. You don't want to please everybody. And as for the little imperfections, the occasional pot belly or the graying temple, those imperfections are worth it. If you can't be perfect, settle for excellence.
Hey, yeah, sure.
Oh, are we gonna get another guest?
What?
Sammy.
Say hi.
Now I've got
Sammy.
Hey, Sam.
Ready? 1, 2.
Sammy coming up.
Here she comes.
Hey, Sammers.
Beautiful dog.
She won't.
Sammy. Hello, Sammers. Oh, yeah,
We
she's
miss
totally
you,
sweetheart.
Dr. K. That's all we want to say.
So yes, for folks, there's a few comments in the chat room. Yes, the main show is from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Then we have after party, where we just sort of loosen up and talk about other stuff and have a good time. If you show up late, well, rewatch it. It'll be reposted on Facebook with any copyright track material removed, but just listen through the silence. Go to the YouTube channel for KALIB, KALIB, and you will find the repost there with all the music. And if you have a kid that's a gamer, he probably knows all about Twitch, and they're posted on Twitch as well.
The show where everyone's on the guest list.
What is Twitch?
So Twitch was a platform where gamers would show their videos of their gameplay and talk to each other. So it was like a social network for gamers. And I don't know if you know this, Eric, but gaming some years ago became a global sport.
Yeah.
Right? This huge tournament. So Twitch was like the online platform for that world and community. But now a lot of DJs have moved on to it, and they've created followings up there. Although there was a recent crackdown on DJs on Twitch. So it's another platform. And I've been restreaming to it as the third stream to see what comes of it. I've learned that all the hours we've been putting into the show don't count because they're restreamed through a third-party service. So I don't know. I might drop it or switch it. With my current account, I'm allowed to stream to 3 locations. Instagram Live doesn't directly allow you to do it, but apparently there's something called Yellow Duck that will allow me. So I might switch from Twitch to Instagram through Yellow Duck. When I get the
Well, I
spare
don't-
time to figure out what the heck that all means.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I'm quite the gamer.
Oh, I did not
I am.
know.
I am a serious solitaire player.
Oh my goodness. Is that like a strategy game, or is that a first-person shooter?
I think it's pretty much a waste of life, but it passes the time.
Well, solitaire, if it's a first-person shooter, you'd be shooting at yourself, which is not probably the best way to play the game.
First-person shooter. I'll think about that later.
Okay, yeah. It could be also like you do your own theft crimes on your own. What's that very popular game, Grand Theft Auto, Volume 10 or something like that? It could be like you do it on your own, like you're a repo man or something.
I steal money out of my wallet all the time.
You gotta
I
stop
never
this
get
bad
ahead, though.
habits. Well, it's the Peter and Paul thing, They're working against you, my friend.
Except you're both Peter and Paul.
Oh, that led to a couple jokes I would have said at the wine bar, but I'm not going to say on this show.
Oh.
I just self-censored myself as an artist. Tragic.
Oh yeah, you mean
Tragic thing online.
I went to Las Vegas last week, and yeah.
So we are at 38 minutes into the after party. There have been after parties that have gone for several hours. Joe was a part of one of those events, but my wife would like us to go for a walk and have some health and
Yes.
go see some trees and I was about to say drink oxygen and breathe in oxygen and all that good stuff. So I think we should wrap up.
I would like to report one thing is very important.
Yeah.
It has cooled from 99 to 91 in the time that we've been doing this. So
rather than dying for the show and the sake of art, you've actually gotten better.
yeah, and I don't think I not much of a sweat. So
You sure it's not the tequila?
it probably is. I dehydrated myself, so there's nothing to come out. No moisture. No. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for this.
You're welcome, man, and
It was
thank
fun.
you for being on the show. And glad
Nice to meet you,
enjoyed
Joe.
it.
You guys, let's do it. Let's do it again really soon.
Okay.
Yeah, and now that you've done the show, you've seen the format. Think about it. We've had a couple people come back for second rounds. Love to have you on the show. I know you have a ton of songs to share with the world. As you know, Joe, you haven't watched the Joe Price episode, so you probably don't know this. But Joe Price is the man of the Bay Area. He's like the poet of the Bay Area because he posts online all those things we think about, like the early morning fog over the Golden Gate Bridge or being up on Grizzly Peak, because he gets out and about. And he knows all of Marin, San Francisco, Berkeley, Oakland, even all the way down to San Jose. So I think you guys will have a lot of great chats.
Ignore the rumors. That's all I ask.
Adios. I'm going to
Adios,
be,
man.
So
Until
let's-
next time.
yeah,
Have a
until
good
next
one.
time.
Until next time.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for
Thanks,
watching.
everyone. Ciao. You've been watching Sunday Live with Caleb. Our guest artist this month was Eric Jorgenson, playing his original songs and newly recorded tracks. In addition, we had a little sneak peek into some comedy videos he produced with a friend. And you can find my work on Bandcamp, KALIB, KALIB.bandcamp.com. If you like more of the rock folk side of me, if you like a little more electronic, industrial, dark wave kind of stuff, audioterrorist.bandcamp.com. If you like some sexy electronica with a female lead singer, that is Queer Blue. That's spelled CUIRBLEU. That's French for blue leather. .bandcamp.com. There are official YouTube channels for all three band projects. Go ahead and check them out. You can always message me on Facebook, Caleb Duart, and find out more. I want to thank you so much for watching, and have a great week. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Bye-bye.